Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
First petition says delist the Western Great Lakes wolves.
Cougar got hit in Minneapolis. Cougars get hit on in Fargo.
So you could delist the Great Lakes population and still have protected populations elsewhere in the country.
I fish, I hunt, and always will. Broadcasting from the Eau Claire Outdoor Studios. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. We're not just a radio show anymore. This is Sporting Journal Radio. That's right. Welcome to the show. My name is Bret Amundson. Thank you for tuning in right here on this radio station, maybe downloading the podcast or watching this on YouTube. Thank you very much for coming and checking this show out. We got a really good one for you this week, ladies and gentlemen. The wolf topic is heating up in Minnesota. If you didn't think it was heating up before, it's really starting to ramp up now, especially when deer harvest numbers were down in Minnesota, and they've been trending downward in the Northeast for a number of years now. So we have Brian Lynn from the Sportsmen's Alliance Foundation. They are suing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service about the wolves on the endangered species list as part of the Endangered Species Act. We're going to find out why they have this lawsuit, what it means, and what it could mean, and what the status of it is coming up. We got a really great discussion with Brian coming up this week. We're also going to bring in Joe Henry, who has some words of wisdom for our own Dan Amundson. Dan, what's going on over there?
Have you ever started a show by saying it's not a terrific show or a great show coming up?
They're always amazing shows, of course.
Well, I'm not saying, I'm not doubting that. I'm just curious.
I don't know. Probably not. Well, it's because we always bring good shows. That is our goal here, to always bring you a quality outdoor experience on
It'd be interesting
sporting.
if there was one radio show that said, we don't.
This week's
Just
terrible.
Gonna mail it in. Terrible show today.
Just turn it
I
off.
don't know what we're going to do.
I know a lot of shows that should be saying that.
Well, wow.
Hey, I'm just kidding.
Care to share any names?
I'm just ours.
Let's out the
Sporting Journal Radio.
Let's out the outdoor industry.
We got plenty of controversial topics this week. We don't need to get another one. We are also going to talk about a mountain lion in Minneapolis and its untimely demise met on 394. What happened? We'll explain coming up in just a second. First, Dan, who are this week's sponsors?
Live Target. Match the hatch at Live Target Lures this winter.com. Plenty of ice fishing baits there. Lake of the Woods Tourism. You can use those live targets at Lake of the Woods. It's the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this winter at Lake of the Woods, mn.com. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Fish out of a snow bear on Devil's Lake this winter. Learn more at haybaleHeights.com. Ottertail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. And Prairie Sportsman. The new season starts in January, but you can watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel.
Pretty excited. Going to film a deer hunt for Prairie Sportsman this weekend, actually, with Danny Thompson from Garmin. A lot of people know him from Garmin, but I'll tell you what, man, that guy's passion for whitetails is unmatched, and the amount of work he puts in for food plots and land management is unbelievable. So we're gonna talk to Danny and see some of his work firsthand. And you know what I'm taking down there, Dan? This is a first for Sporting Journal Radio, by the way.
What's that?
I got the new Toyota Tundra last week. This week, while we're recording this podcast, a Woodland... Yeah, you get one and you get one. A brand new Toyota RAV4, the Woodland Edition, is just showed up in the driveway.
Brand new car!
It's here, and they dropped it off, and they want us to use it for a week and drive around in it, check it out, tell you about it. So thank you, Toyota, for providing us with this RAV4. So we're going to take it down and do some deer hunting with it and do some filming and stuff with it. So I have yet to see it. Dan, you went out and met the guy.
It's in the driveway. That's what I know.
Is it camel? Did you even see it? Did it blend in?
Well, it's dark.
Oh.
It was dark. For those of you watching this on Friday at 10 a.m., it's currently dark. This is SJR After Dark.
That's right. It's a Woodland Editions. I don't know if that means, I don't think the vehicle is going to be camo. I don't know what color it is. I'm assuming there's maybe some camo trim on the inside probably. I don't know. We'll go take a look at it. We're going to drive it around for the next week, and we'll be telling you more about it next week here on the show. And then follow us on social and our personal socials, Instagram, whatever. I'm sure you'll be seeing more about it. So if you're curious to know what the Woodland edition of the Toyota RAV4 is all about, we will tell you. And I'm going to try, when I have to drive through the cities with it. And Dan, I'm going to try not to hit any mountain lions, but it sounds like the problem cat is no longer there anyway.
Well, can they actually confirm that?
I don't know.
How do you know there's not two?
It definitely could be. Definitely could be. So if you don't know the story, I think most people have probably heard the story, but if you haven't, we're going to tell you. There was, we've got the story from the Star Tribune. So thank you, Star Tribune. We're going to show you. So first, this mountain lion was caught in the Lowry Hill area of Minneapolis on some sort of security camera. And if you watch this video, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see the video. Hopefully we won't get dinged for showing this, but that mountain lion jumped a fence into that driveway and then just kind of sauntered its way through the driveway past the residence garage there. And then the next day, a guy driving a Hummer on 394 and he's pulling a trailer. Just hit that little roll.
You're talking to yourself there.
I know.
This is a screen recording you made.
Recording.
So you got to click it.
I just saw the cursor going back and forth. I read this story and the guy's like, I hit it. It came out of nowhere. There was a thump and then my vehicle went into the median and I'm like, oh, okay. He hit a mountain lion. I didn't think it'd be that drastic, but man, he totaled a Hummer hitting this mountain lion on 394 and then killed it. And there it is. If you're watching this, I apologize that we're showing you a dead mountain lion, but it's a dead one. It's roadkill. And it's so wild to see a mountain lion on 394 in Minneapolis like that. But according to that Star Tribune article right there, that was the one that was spotted. But I don't know. But according to the Minnesota DNR, since 2004, only 77 mountain lions have been verified in the state. Some of those are roadkill. Some of those are trail cameras, and some of those are, I think, just tracks that were identified by the DNR. So what was really interesting, I thought, though, was that 54 of those 77 have come since 2016. So out of 77 in the last 20 years, look at the graph right there if you're watching this, a majority of them have really taken place in the last 7 years. Now, I don't know if that's because there's increased use of trail cameras, or if the population of cats in the Dakotas is going up, because most of these animals, I mean, some people will argue that there's mountain lions in Minnesota, and they definitely pass through here. And yeah, maybe some stick around for a little bit, but there's been no documentation of like a female that's had kittens. Cubs? Cubs?
I don't
Mountain lion
know.
cubs?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Has nested?
I don't think they nest.
I'm not even sure what to say.
Does a cat nest? Does a deer nest?
I don't think there's been like breeding pairs in Minnesota. It's mostly been young males who get kicked out of a territory in the Black Hills or in western North Dakota. You'll see them in eastern North Dakota once in a while, just kind of passing through. They don't really hang out. Just look at the info from that radio tracked one back, what was it, 10 years ago or whatever, that was caught on a camera, I think in Stillwater or something. And then it got hit by a car like in Connecticut or New Jersey a couple of days later. Like the thing traveled halfway across the United States in a couple of days. So obviously they passed through Minnesota. And I won't get into the semantics of how long they stay here and things like that. But 54 of those 77 coming since 2016. So are they coming through more? Is the population up more? Or are trail cameras just showing us more of the mountain lions? It's interesting to see that one in Minneapolis is pretty wild. And we really should be calling them cougars, because there'd be so many more jokes about cougars.
I'm going to say, you say a lot of them pass through. I know there's a bunch in Fargo that probably sit around that you probably met doing radio up there.
Cougar got hit in Minneapolis. Cougars get hit on in Fargo.
I don't know. You lived there, so I'd assume.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We have got Brian Lynn. What's our time? Is it time to break down?
Nope. Keep talking.
Keep talking.
How much? First time I've ever told you that.
Yeah. How much more time do we got? Oh, what we should talk about is a brand new podcast. We've teased it, talked about it a little bit here on Sporting Journal Radio, but the North American Waterfowl Podcast is finally here. We recorded a series of interviews, recorded a series of podcasts back in 2021. We got a little busy, so we're finally putting them out. And the first episodes are about the best band story we've ever heard. So episode 1 is out, In Search of the Best Band Story, and it includes a band found while fishing. That's one of the oldest bands I've heard of. And it was in our backyard in western Minnesota, so that was pretty interesting. And then we also tracked down the origin of another band that was shot by a friend of ours, Tony Crotty. And for the long time, for a number of years, he didn't know what it was until this podcast, until we record this podcast. It said Gene's Argo sales on the band, and they did a little Google search and saw there was some Argo dealer, but never called him, never really knew the history about it. So we track down Gene, we get him on the phone, and it takes a while for us to figure it out, but we get to the bottom of the Gene's Argo sales band on the first episode of the North American Waterfowl podcast that is now available wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or go to NorthAmericanWaterfowl.com or go to SportingJournalRadio.com. We've got it on a whole bunch of places.
Or the Sporting Journal Radio YouTube channel. This channel you're watching this podcast on, you can watch the North American Waterfowl Show.
Yeah, that's
Hopefully that doesn't confuse you, but
it's definitely going to confuse a lot of people.
Well, figure it out. Be smarter. This is a brain exercise for America. If you can't figure out our podcast, you're screwed. Just
please figure our podcast out, please. This is our jobs. So if we can do anything to help make it easier for you, just let us know. We will.
Should I give your phone number out on the air? People can call you personally.
You can contact us at Sporting Journal Radio.
Call Bret personally.
Or just comment below right here. But if you're watching this,
if you're commenting below, click it'll say Sporting Journal Radio to the left. I don't know, to the left, I suppose. It'll be like right down here. Click that, and then it should show up.
Okay.
If you're watching it on YouTube, if you're commenting on the YouTube link, it'll be there. So
if you're pointing at your radio right now, you can't click on
just
anything.
Scream at your radio if you can't figure it out. So, my camera must have died.
That's not going to help.
That's a great look.
All right, so oh, that's awesome. That's the thumbnail. That's definitely the thumbnail for the podcast this week right there. Caption what Dan's about to say about his mustache.
Oh, no, wait, dang it.
All right, it's back. All right, how's our time now?
Let's take a break.
Okay, so coming up, Brian Lynn from the Sportsmen's Alliance. They're suing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service about wolves in Minnesota. All the details on the way. And Joe Henry when we come back on Sporting Journal Radio. Live Target, the leader in Match the Hatch, is back with new lures that also match the action. Introducing the Live Craw. The Live Craw is irresistible to bass, walleye, and other freshwater species. FTech's winner, the Ultimate Frog, looks and acts just like a swimming frog. With an exposed ultra-point mustad hook and replaceable legs, the Ultimate Frog has 2 styles, 2 sizes, and 8 colors. And iCast and FTech's winner, the Live Shrimp, mimics a fleeing shrimp for saltwater anglers. Coming soon from Live Target. Ice fishing season is here. This winter, plan a trip to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Not only will you have the chance to catch their legendary perch, but this year, Haybale Heights has been catching big walleye after big walleye. And they're doing it from a mobile, comfortable snow bear. No matter how cold it is outside, you're warm and toasty on the inside. Learn more and book a trip today at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. All right, now it's time to talk to Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. We got a special segment with Joe this week. Dan, Joe, you have to teach young Dan about life. Yeah. What words of wisdom do you have this week?
Well, I tell you what, it's going to take a long time and a lot of teaching because I got a lot of years on Danny.
What is that supposed to mean?
I'll tell you this much. All kidding aside, anybody that's listening to this, and if you're not watching this, you are really missing out because if you saw that stash of Danny's, that mustache, I mean, I almost got for Christmas, I almost got you some mustache wax. I don't know if you curl it on the ends yet or not. And then the other thing I was going to do is I was going to get you, maybe an old cassette. I don't know if you know what a cassette is, but an old cassette of like Queen, just to kind of represent Freddie Mercury because it kind of looks like Freddie Mercury's. Really, it does. I mean, you must have people calling you Freddie from time to time, don't you?
Just you, Joe. Actually, just you.
Bret, come on.
I mean, we could start calling him Freddie here on the show.
Is that a compliment?
Oh, he's wildly famous. I mean, people flock to him.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure my mom would love if I curled the mustache up.
I think so. I think you should.
She should comment below.
Or just full on. It seems like it's longer than it was last week.
Well, you get a little lazier when you trim it.
Well, guys, I told you the story, and I don't know if I've told your listeners the story. which way back when I went to spring break that time. And of course, they like to hook you as a lifelong revenue stream when you go to spring break as a college student. You're at that age, they want to get you. And I think it was Gillette Company was at spring break down in Daytona Beach, Florida. And what they do is they bring up a nice-looking female, and they'd blindfold her. And then they'd grab 5 of us guys from the audience, and she'd come across and feel our cheeks for the smoothest shave. And if you won, you got a real nice prize package. So she felt my cheeks. She went and felt everybody else. She came back and felt my cheeks. And my gosh, if I didn't win the smoothest shave contest, I won a real nice prize package from Gillette. What I didn't tell her, I didn't shave that day.
Better to be lucky than good.
It's really just envy. It's pure envy. I'm envious of all you guys with all that facial hair.
Yeah, I've never seen you with a beard, Joe.
Nope. I get a little bit of growth, but boy, I'll tell you, it'd take a long time, and it'd be a little bit patchy, I think, and not like Freddie. I'll tell you, Freddie's just got going on.
It's better to be good than or lucky than good.
Well, I'll tell you what, it sure warmed up this week, and I know I had to drive. What day was it? Wednesday, the day we're recording this. I had to drive into the cities and back, and driving out. I left at 6 a.m, and driving out early. There were some ponds and sloughs and lakes that had ice, and driving back in the afternoon, there was some open water on some of those. So I think we lost some ice this week, Joe.
Yeah, it changed that quick, hey? I know up at Lake of the Woods, I was looking at the weather forecast, and, we're just coming off that St. Paul ice fishing show, and people, hey, how's the ice? Is it coming along? Am I going to, my reservations in early January, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be okay at Christmas, And, every year Mother Nature determines, but it was going to get to the 40s, the low 40s, and then at night it was going to get to the low 30s. And, I don't think it's going to do a ton of damage. That it might hit 40 or 41, but that angle of the sun isn't such that it melts a ton of ice typically. And, we're coming along up north, Bret. We're marking some trails back in our bays. The ice guides are out there. I would say that, out on the main lake, yeah, we're starting to mark some trails. There's still some open water on the main lake that popped open, which is typical this time of year. There's some holes of open water. But when you look at a satellite view of Lake of the Woods, the whole Big Traverse Bay is ice covered. And then there's some spots of open water along shore and things like that. It's coming along. It's not there yet. Actually, up in the northwest angle, they staked a trail from Young's Bay out to some of the islands, and it's not ready yet, but it's coming along very nicely up there. The ice is nice and smooth, and it's clear. So we're making progress, but it's going to take a little time yet. I always say we're going to, people ask me, how thick is the ice? And facetiously, I say it's anywhere from 0 to 8 inches.
Yeah.
Well, Lake of the Woods is so big. How do you answer that?
Right.
It's almost like let's rely on the ice guides or the outfitters in specific areas of Lake of the Woods and let them make a determination based on the ice that they're working, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's 6 hours north of where I was driving today, which is almost it's like in a different stratosphere. Sometimes it seems like a lot of different weather. And I was kind of surprised, here in, western, southwestern Minnesota, there's really no snow on the ground. I think there was just a little bit of a dusting in the driveway this morning. But when I got to the cities, they had actually gotten a little bit of snow, enough to have to shovel their driveways and their sidewalks off. There was still a little bit of snow piling on the edge of some of the driveways. I was kind of surprised at that. So it seems like every part of Minnesota got a little bit of different weather this week. But I mean, historically, we're getting into that time when ice fishing is going to be here. And you're right. You rely on those guys up there that are out there. This is their job, to go out and check that ice. If they're out there staking trails, they're out there checking ice conditions all over the place. And that's why it just makes sense to go through some of those guys up there at Lake of the Woods.
100%. People say, "Yeah, Joe, you just want us to use the outfitters or the resorts," and it's not that at all. For the measly $15 you pay, they're out there staking trails, checking ice, flooding ice, chopping down stuff, bridging cracks, knocking down ice upheavals, driving the trails daily. They know how far you can go out. Everybody wants to go deeper and deeper and deeper. Well, usually deeper isn't even better ice. So we got to make sure there's good enough ice if we go deeper. And I mean, they're keeping you safe is what they're doing. And they're also a resource for, helping you understand what the bite is all about, what the bite windows have been, what kind of lures, what kind of colors, all of that stuff. So that's why I say, rely on the ice guides. There has been a little bit of fishing going on, quite honestly. I talked to one guide today, and when I called him, he was in a spear house doing some spearing on one of the back bays. for pike. And then I know one of the other resorts, they just had one of their ice guides go and just do a little bit of testing and caught a few walleyes. Not that they're putting out the public yet, but he was just, as he's checking ice, he knew it was safe and sighted the fish the evening, got some nice walleyes. So things are starting to come, and I think we're going to be a little bit behind of where we normally are on average. People say, when do you normally start ice fishing? Usually about December 10th is when we get out our day houses as a rule. We're going to be a little bit behind that this year, I think, in most areas. But, we're not going to necessarily be far behind it. I saw that the weather forecast has cold in it. And, when you don't have any snow and you don't have thick ice, that ice can build really quick.
Do you think, those guys are really good at catching fish up there, the guides are good at staking trails and seeing how safe the ice is. Do you think they're good at telling people how to grow handlebar mustaches?
A lot of that has to do with luck of the draw based on genealogy. And that's something that Danny has going for me, as genealogy. Now, he doesn't have the wisdom yet, but he has genealogy and he has one heck of a stash. That mustache, if there was a mustache contest, Danny, I think I'd probably put my money into it, honestly.
All right. Joe, what if people want to get an ice fishing trip booked up to Lake of the Woods, what should they do?
Yeah, an ice fishing trip or maybe a mustache report?
Yeah, yes.
Check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world, is calling out to you. From the northwest angle to the South Shore and Rainy River, this is the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleyes, sauger, perch, northern pike, and eelpout. The fishing on Lake of the Woods is like a world of its own. Experience the most amazing fishing through one of the many full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper fish house options. For more information, go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties, all in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
Looking for winter adventure? Might as well pick a place with over 1,000 lakes. Otter Tail County, Minnesota is in the middle of everywhere, offers a simpler pace, and has something for everyone. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
All right, this is Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Bret Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on the network. By demand, sportingjournalradio.com, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you very much. Give us a like and a subscribe down below. And if you have a comment about something that we're talking about, make sure you comment below as well too, because we got a really important topic for those of you listening in the region here. Maybe you're in Minnesota, maybe you're elsewhere, but Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan for sure. This is probably a good topic for you right now, because we're going to talk about wolves and the situation with wolves in the endangered species list here in just a second. We're going to bring on Brian Lynn right now. He's a vice president of marketing and communications with the Sportsmen's Alliance Foundation. Brian, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having us on.
Oh, wow. Look at that. That's a nice background there. I thought I had a good background. You got a good one back there, too. That's a fox over your left shoulder there, it sounds like.
Yep.
All right. Well, I want to ask you about that coming up later in the show. But first, tell us what the Sportsmen's Alliance Foundation is.
Sportsmen's Alliance Foundation, we're actually two 50C. There's a 50C3 and a 50C4. We're two organizations technically. We just go by the Sportsmen's Alliance, but it's to provide a well-rounded defense for hunting, fishing, and trapping. And we work in all 50 state legislatures, state and federal court, and at the ballot box. And basically we look out for hunters, anglers, and trappers, bad bills that come through legislatures, lawsuits, that we can step into and make sure that hunters are represented. When the government's handling something, Fish and Wildlife gets sued, for instance, we can step in and make sure that our side is being represented, or we can file lawsuits against states, against the federal government, or whatever. And so it's just to look out for your everyday hunter, angler, and trapper that's out there.
There may be no more important time than right now, I think, for an organization like that. I mean, you could probably look back in history and say, yeah, we needed to fight this one in court. But I think there's so many threats to our way of life right now, and most of us that like to hunt and fish, we just want to go live in the woods and live off the land, right? You know, go shoot some deer, cook them up over an open fire or whatever. It doesn't matter. None of us really want to deal with the politics and lawsuits and things like that, but it's so necessary, and it's becoming more and more necessary to have an organization like this to fight for us right now. So I think this is great. I'm really excited about having you on. And I've been following Sportsmen's Alliance, and we work with the Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers. So we handle some of the communications and social media for Aglow. So just about every day I share something from your Instagram onto our Instagram, and every day there's something about this is a bad bill in this state on the East Coast. This is what's going on that you need to know about out west and in the everywhere. It seems like there's always something that people need to pay attention to, and it's so easy just to try to tune all that out and just go about your day and just watch your own bobber, as they say. But it's more and more important to be involved and at least be aware of the issues, and especially if something comes up at the ballot box, to know what to vote for, to be able to continue the tradition of the outdoors. So I think this is great. And with what is happening in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Michigan with the Great Lakes wolves, I'll never forget 2015. I was ice fishing, and I was out there by myself, and it was real slow, and I was kind of kicked back, and my phone vibrated, and I see all this. Just like in the evening too, and I get this notice that the wolves are being relisted on the endangered species list, and I just sat there, and my jaw kind of dropped, and I couldn't believe that it happened. And I was going on a wolf hunt in Ontario in 2 weeks right after that. And I had a chance to interview Dave Meach, who probably knows more about those wolves than anybody on the planet. And I had the chance to ask him, why? What is the reasoning for this? And I said, what was your reaction when you heard about this? He said, I'm flabbergasted. Like, there's no biological reason that these wolves should be back on the endangered species list. So this has been, and obviously this year with our deer hunting season, our harvest numbers are way down. People up in the northeast part of Minnesota, they're really starting to get vocal about the wolf population and what's going on. And obviously weather plays a role. Black bears play a role. There's other predators out there. But from the Sportsmen's Alliance Foundation's viewpoint, when did this situation with the Great Lakes wolves, when did that kind of show up on your radar?
Oh, well, we've been in the legal fight for about 20 years. This has been going on for 2 decades almost. And we've been a part of that, part of the appeals process, part of the, we've delisted them 3 different times.
Oh, yeah.
And they've been put back on technicalities, on judges' rulings. With the Humane Society, Center for Biological Diversity, Sierra Club, this is no longer about biology. About the wolf population itself. Now they're filing lawsuits on ambiguous pieces, making legal arguments, and it's about wording within the Endangered Species Act. It's just a legal chess game at this point, and they're starting to run out of moves. But as you know, lawyers, they can come up with an argument for anything.
Right.
And they're the ones getting rich here, and everybody else is suffering. We've been fighting this for about 20 years, and you're talking about when they got relisted. I mean, I remember sitting here waiting just for the ruling to come out, and so we could put up a story, and it was, it was a blow, and it starts getting into, they started pulling in different wolf populations as their argument that if something were to happen, hypothetically, to the Great Lakes wolves, how does that impact the Rocky Mountain wolves, the wolves on the West Coast, other wolf populations, and if they need to, supplement those with genetic diversity? It also argued about historical range and suitable habitat within that historical range, saying that Fish and Wildlife has to consider these different pieces, which just takes time. Like the obvious answer is like, yeah, it's not suitable everywhere. But that takes time to do correctly and to file the reports and get that kind of information out there. So that's where we've been at, and that's part of what we've gone and done lately is we found a way to basically fulfill all the court's needs and filed petitions with the government to, hey, let's fix this finally, and fix it not just in the Great Lakes, but the West Coast, the Rocky Mountains, and anywhere else the wolves might show up.
I mean, let's go back a little bit. I mean, the Humane Society of the United States has kind of been at the crux of this whole situation, right? And have they been, when you talk about this going on for 20 years, has it always been them, or has it been like that Center for Biological Diversity and the Sierra Club, some of these other organizations too, or is it all of them, or is there one that's kind of spearheading this effort?
I mean, they'll all jump in, sometimes with different arguments, sometimes with different tactics, but Humane Society of the United States is the 200-pound gorilla in the room. I mean, they're the big dogs in the world. They have like a $200 million a year budget, and so they got money to burn.
And I think it's maybe you can clarify this a little bit better, but a lot of people think, man, the Humane Society is great. They have shelters for pets down there. I'm adopting pets. It's a different Humane Society than the one of the Humane Society of the United States.
Yes, your local shelter, your local Humane Society, I call it little h, little s, that's dependent on donations, sometimes local taxes. Humane Society of the United States, and they say this on their website because they were getting called out for it, they do not run one single shelter, do not financially support one single shelter. They'll give out some grants here and there to do a spay and neuter thing, but not $200 million worth.
Yeah.
They are a lobbying activist organization with lawyers, lobbyists, movie stars. I mean, they bring in a lot of money and spend a lot of money on making more money, on advertising, on fundraising type deals. And they've been that way for decades, but everybody gets them confused thinking they're a parent group. They have nothing to do with your local shelter. If you want to help the pets, give local.
Yeah. Are they just an anti-hunting organization, or is it some sort of wildlife welfare? Honestly, we don't even need to talk about them. I don't even want to give them any more publicity, to be honest with you. I just know from what I remember is they basically just went from judge to federal judge to federal judge to federal judge until they could get somebody to hear their arguments. And the basis of their argument was, I think you mentioned it, that wolves hadn't returned to their historical ranges. But as we know, wolf populations have exceeded the Fed's goal for wolf populations, right? I mean, like, we got plenty of wolves out there. There's no reason they need to be on that list.
Yeah, no, they especially in the Great Lakes, they've exceeded the state plans, they've exceeded the federal plans, yet they're keeping it going with red tape and forcing the government to jump through hoops. Okay, but obviously there isn't suitable habitat throughout the country, but they have to document all this. In that same ruling, however, we won a big point, and we said it back there, and people didn't quite get it, but there's distinct population segments, and that's the Great Lakes, that's the Rocky Mountains. What we're proposing is a West Coast one also, and a remnant one. But the point that was argued in court, Humane Society said it's a one-way street. You can only list a distinct population. We argued you could also delist. So you could delist the Great Lakes population and still have protected populations elsewhere in the country. And they tried to say no. The judge agreed with us and ruled that, yeah, you can delist. And that's really at the basis now, fast forward to 2023, of what our petition is.
So that first petition was about the wolves. And I noticed that the Michigan Bear Hunters Association, Upper Peninsula Bear Houndsman Association, and Wisconsin Bear Hunters Association signed on and joined on. I didn't see anybody from Minnesota on there. Why is that, you think?
I don't know. That's more towards the government affairs team and who they assemble and who they can get on, and just kind of timing wise with other things as well.
All right. And then there was a second petition. So these petitions, the two petitions, were filed on June 29th. They had 90 days to respond, which would have been September 27th. They didn't. That second petition then was basically giving the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service a plan, right, for delisting?
Yep. Yeah. No. We had basically these two petitions taken together satisfy the court's needs, right? Like it's the blueprint. It's the answer to what we need. First petition says delist the Western Great Lakes wolves DPS. The second petition is saying to create a West Coast wolves DPS, because right now the only other DPS is the Rocky Mountains, and that's your Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and the eastern 1/3 of Oregon and Washington. The other wolves are kind of out there in no man's land. So we're saying create a Western wolf DPS that's Washington, Oregon, California, that isn't already part of the Rocky Mountain, and then create a remnant population or DPS population that is wolves that may show up elsewhere, anywhere else that, your Nevadas, Utahs, whatever. And so then now we have our DPS is set up, and we can delist as each one meets the thresholds.
So it allows
common sense.
Yeah, it allows you to manage the different populations, almost the way state game management agencies manage populations of animals within their state. They're just not under federal.
Yeah.
I mean, these would still be under federal jurisdiction, essentially, but separate from the other wolves in the country.
Yeah, so you could delist the Western Great Lakes wolves because there's plenty of them, and they need to be managed, and still protect the West Coast wolves and the remnant population. And as those populations grow, then you can dial them up and, take them off the Endangered Species Act. And or if they fall below a threshold, I mean, there's already an automatic trigger that if wolves fall below a certain level, they go back on the ESA immediately. They don't have to go through the listing process and all that again. They immediately go back on the ESA. So you could relist them while keeping another population unlisted or delisted. So it's really the answer in the blueprint. We handed it to them.
Seems so logical. I mean, and honestly, none of this is there's no logic involved, obviously. There's been, I try to stay out of the Facebook arguments. And we've got this, actually a really neat, I think, research organization, the Voyagers Wolf Project up in northeastern Minnesota. There's some biologists doing some really interesting research up there. And generally they stay out of, one side or the other, like most biologists. Generally, they stay out of, they just try to present facts and talk about the science. And I had a little discussion, a back and forth with them, because they presented some numbers about recent deer hunting harvest numbers up in the northeastern part of the state. And I think there's a huge number that they touched on it but didn't spend much time on it, and that was the hunter success rates in the last 5-6 years and how they've decreased so much. But I generally try to stay out of the internet arguments about all of this. But it's definitely ramped up around here recently. So this has been a pretty important topic here in Minnesota, especially for our deer hunters. And there's a lot of deer hunters that get worked up about it. And there's a lot of people on the other side, anti-hunters or whatever you want to call them, that get pretty worked up about it. But generally, I feel like hunters have a little bit more of the science and boots on the ground knowledge and experience. And I made the comment to, there's my post right there. I made the comment right at, I don't know, one of those things where, so much of this the lawsuits to relist the wolves was based on emotion and not science. It's a societal issue. It's when I talk to the DNR about sandhill cranes, or you talk to them about trumpeter swans, which are way over population recovery goals. You talk to them about, even when we got the dove hunting season here in Minnesota, so much of it was less about the biology and the fact that these populations are large enough to sustain a harvest and needing to be managed. But so many people see a beautiful creature and get so emotional about it that they just forget all about. They're the ones that tell you usually to trust the science, right?
Follow the science.
Follow the science. That's right. And then they just have no idea about the science when it comes to stuff like this, like the wolves. So getting back to these two petitions, they were filed again on June 29th. They had 90 days, according to the way. No, they had 90 days. That's an Endangered Species Act requirement that they have to respond within 90 days.
Yeah, that's law. That's law. So that's part of the Endangered Species Act. That's federal law. It's an APA violation that they didn't. So, and we kept asking, we're trying to play nice here. And we kept asking, and it was just a black hole, just a void, no response.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, you kind of hope that it was just bureaucratic, oversight or something. I don't know, because so far, almost every administration has been supportive of. I mean, earlier in the year or last year, the Biden administration was appealing the lower 48 delisting ruling, and they've been fairly good about wolves. So you don't know if it's a political thing, it's gamesmanship or what, so we kept asking. We gave them well over, the 90 days, hoping this would work out and we'd get an answer and could talk. Didn't get one, so they've kind of tied our hands, and so we have filed the notice of intent to sue.
What is the status of that lawsuit, and where do you think that'll go?
So it's right now we've just filed the notice. They have, I don't know if it was 60 or 90 days to respond to that. So we are waiting for that deadline to pass, see if they respond, and satisfy our original request. If so, then we'll have our answer and we can move from there. If not, then we'll have to file suit and follow through with it just to simply get an answer. These are petitions. We're asking them. We're saying, here you go. Here's the answer. And so if we just have to sue just to get them to answer and sit down and have a conversation with us, it's not great. But there it is. So I guess we'll just kind of see when the time comes up.
Well, I can about promise you that politics are playing a role in this. Especially with everything that's going on in the world of politics right now. I'm sure that politics are playing a role in this right now. So I'm glad that it's that you're doing it. It's like I think when I first saw the post, I think I shared it on my Instagram and I commented, if they're going to use the courts, we're going to use the courts. And I got a pretty big response from that. And sometimes if they want to take the fight to the legal system, then we have to go there and do battle against them. And and when we've got the facts and the numbers to back up our side of that argument. So, I mean,
100%.
If they have done such a good job of tying things up in litigation, what's to keep them from continuing to do that?
And that's going to become, that's kind of what the Sportsmen's Alliance has started to turn to. I mean, so many states have super majorities in their legislatures, or like I'm in Washington State. Our Fish and Game Commission, which is appointed by the governor, just basically on what he feels.
Yeah.
He has appointed a bunch of anti-hunters, and they're trying to do away with predator hunting. And so it doesn't do any good to go through the legislatures or the commissions in some states. And so the courts are our final check and balance, right? And so that's something we're going to embrace. The other side does it. They're very successful at it. So we should too. And I mean, we've got a lawsuit in Washington State. We've got a lawsuit in California. We've got 2 lawsuits against Fish and Wildlife now. We've got another one we're supporting Fish and Wildlife in. And, you know, we have to use all the tools in the toolbox, and that's one of them, unfortunately.
Man, that, I think you brought up a good point, and this may be better for a different podcast, but I saw an article, I don't know if it was Outdoor Life or who it was, but it was about people that have an anti-hunting agenda getting appointed to be commissioners, game commissioners, or in game management agencies. You know, I think it was, you know, this would open up a whole nother can of worms, but I think we're seeing people that have different agendas getting elected or getting appointed or getting into positions of power, which I guess is the legal way to do it in the United States. But what that means is we need more people that think like us to get into those positions and find a way into those positions. Unfortunately, some of those appointments, there's not much you can do about that. Let's try to get more votes for a different governor, I suppose. But I think we just have to get so much more active. I don't know if people really grasp the gravity, you know, that's involved with some people that have an anti-hunting agenda being in charge of a state game agency. Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah, no, and so to tie this all together and drive it home, so there's a group called Wildlife for All. They're behind a lot of this, and they all have the same goal, and it's rewilding. So here in Washington, they're taking away the mountain lion hunting, taking away bear hunting, putting more protections on coyotes. Federal government wants to introduce grizzly bears.
Yeah.
We have wolves. So you got all these predators on the landscape. We all know what's going to happen. There it is, Wildlife for All. And so they're part of this. And the story you read, we kicked the hornet's nest last year, and that's what kicked off this story. It kicked off and brought everybody's attention to it with the wildlife commissions, because we started saying, hey, here it is. I'm here in Washington. I'm in this fight. I'm doing another TV show podcast about this tomorrow for our wildlife commission and what's going on there. But it's the same thing. And everybody's like, that's out west, that's Washington, it's no big deal. This is exactly what's going on in the Great Lakes states with wolves. It's what's going on with bears. It's, you know, they try to regulate what is legal and try to keep everything else illegal or make it illegal, you know, to hunt. So this rewilding effort to protect the wolves, protect bears, it's all the same, and it's playing out, you know, the Great Lakes, the West Coast, the East Coast. Eventually it will go to the South, you know. So it's a move, and a concerted move nationwide, worldwide, you could argue, to remove hunters and hunting from the landscape.
Gosh, you know, and I'd forgotten about that website. When you pulled it up there, somebody just sent that to me. Somebody was arguing with me about something, and they pulled up that website, and I wish I could remember what it was for, but I know somebody was just arguing with me. I think it was on that wolf thread about, because I said hunters are the biggest conservationists out there. Without hunters, there'd be a lot of extinct animals, and we're the ones paying for a lot of it. And somebody argued, quit spouting. Maybe this was
Here it is.
Here. Yeah. Quit reading your hunter sportsman magazines and spouting false information about that. The non-hunting public donates a lot more to wildlife conservation, so I said, oh, so all my hunter sportsman magazines are wrong and your one anti-hunting website is right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so last year they were in Spokane and had their national conference here, and Wildlife for All had a panel up there for the Wildlife Society, which never should have happened, but they were allowed to. And that's what we kind of kicked the hornet's nest over, and everybody's starting to cover now. But their argument is that Pittman Robertson dollars, you know, come from firearm sales and bullets and all that, whether you hunt or not. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of those guys are your 3-gun shooters, your AR-15s, everything else, which is kind of the catch-22 with the gun control stuff. It would have an impact on PR. But they're making the assumption that because they don't hunt that they don't support hunting and they don't want to pay that tax. So they're lumping them in, they're making assumptions. And so it's, fuzzy math that they use, but it sounds great on paper. Like most of their stuff does, it's an emotional appeal, sounds reasonable, but it's not.
But how much proof do they have that those people, the 3 on the competitive shooters that are buying the ammo, how do they know they don't hunt or support hunting?
Zero.
A lot of those guys probably do hunt.
A lot of them do.
Like to shoot.
I mean, if you just look at sheer numbers of hunters, 15 million hunters averaging, and how many shooters there are, but or gun owners, 80 million or whatever.
Gun owners, and I know a lot of hunters that have bought a whole lot of ammunition in the last.
Well, they claim 74% of guns and ammo are sold not used for hunting. How do you know? Just because it says target load on the box, does that mean it's not used for hunting? Yeah. I shoot a lot of target loads at doves. Just on a basic low-level example, I know a lot of people that do a lot of hunting with ARs or target guns. Yeah. Come on. I've been reading this, and it's just my blood is starting to boil.
Welcome to my world.
It should.
Yeah, I'm not jealous of your job.
No, no, and I'm not either, and I'm very thankful. Thank you. It's almost like when you thank a veteran for their service. It's like, thank you for doing what you're doing, because it's a very important service that your organization is doing for us, and it seems to be getting more important every day. And speaking of ammo, we didn't even get into the discussion about lead ammo, but we've definitely covered that topic a few times recently here on the show, and what they're trying to do, and how that's another step in the direction of trying to ban hunting in certain areas, or making it harder or more expensive. But when it comes to the Sportsmen's Alliance, where does the funding come from? What can people donate? Can people become members? What can the public do out there?
Absolutely. Please join. I mean, we're a small organization compared to your Pheasants Forever, your Ducks Unlimited, turkeys, the deer guys, elk. But without us, those things are going to go away. We like to say, and it's part of our logo really, is we're the tip of the spear. We're providing defense and an offense now. We're going on the offensive here with these court cases. We're a membership-based organization. You can donate to the C4. You can become a member of the C3. I think that's how it goes. Our memberships start at $35. You get your hat, sticker, and whatever. They go up from there with other benefits, with gift cards to Cabela's and anything else. Please join, because it comes down to lobbying and lawyers. Yeah. And that's what it costs, and those guys,
and they're not cheap.
Money. No, not the good ones anyways. So,
right.
So, these are the fights we need to pick, and that's just what we have to do is, we're constantly playing defense, because every year they just throw mud at the wall and see what sticks. And we have to try to block all of that and push our good bills that lay a foundation for the future to protect it, or file lawsuits or defend against lawsuits, and they have a ton of money on their side. So, we need all the support we can get, and you can sign up right there online if you want.
All right. And I want to ask you about that fox here before we go. But real quick, what is the website? Where can people find you?
Sportsmen's, M-E, and sportsmensalliance.org.
Sportsmansalliance.org. All right. Brian Lynn is our guest. All right. And I want you to tell the story, because you were telling us a little bit off the air, and we just started a new podcast called the North American Waterfowl Podcast. And to be fair, I actually recorded all the interviews in 2021. So when I say we just started it, it's been a couple years in the making.
Just launched.
We're just launching it now. And the first series of podcasts were about in search of some of the craziest band stories that we've ever heard of. And we actually just went up to Kodiak Island last year. So North American Waterfowl is a podcast, but it's also going to be a series of films and videos. Like there's our film called Kodiak that we got to do last year up there. It was an amazing duck hunting trip. We didn't shoot any king eiders, but you had a chance to go do the St. Paul Island bit and go after kings up there. Tell me about that trip.
Oh, it was a great trip. I went with Ramsey Russell from GetDucks.com. If you haven't had him on there, you need to have him on. He's a character.
Do you need a translator when you talk to Ramsey? Do you speak Southern?
Yeah, Southern, and about 45 minutes for a quick question. But great guy. I actually took 2 trips with him, one over to the Netherlands for my barnacle goose right here.
Oh, cool.
But
wow.
Yeah, but this was in 2011 or 2012 for the King Eiders, and I mean St. Paul, like that's just a crazy adventure, and the foxes were running around the island out there, which is really cool. Is a nice little added benefit. But for your crazy band story, Ramsey and I had, we were delayed there in Anchorage forever and got through Dillingham finally. And so we didn't get in until, I don't know, 3 a.m. or something like that, 4 a.m. And so we didn't go out the next, for the first hunt that day. But as we got up, the guys who did came in, and one of the guys who was at the lodge there came in, and he had a banded king eider.
That's awesome.
It was crazy. And we had joked about that coming in. They're like, "Oh, so what do you guys want?" And we're in the truck, and we said something about there it is. We said, "Oh, we just want a banded king." And they're like, "Ah, ha, ha, whatever. It doesn't happen." And literally like hours later, he came in with that banded king.
That's so cool.
It started this whole storm up in Alaska about because it went back to an oil spill, and they went out and captured a bunch of them that were stuck in the oil and cleaned them up, and they trekked them all the way back to Anchorage, I think, or Dillingham or someplace, cleaned them up, and then released them after they banded them. And he got one of them years later. But then it started this big argument again up there, and the story wouldn't die for years. It went on. And outdoor writers at the 2 different newspapers were arguing about it. And
what were they arguing about?
Whether or not they should have gone out there and saved the ducks for the amount of money they spent sending a ship out and paying people or whatever, and then bringing them back and cleaning them, and just the amount of money being spent to save a couple hundred ducks. And they're like, yeah, the population can handle it, that's whatever. And so they were arguing about resource use and some other things. Now
you wrote a story about this, right? Was that what we were looking at? Was that Outdoor Life? Yeah. So it's on the Outdoor Life website. Do you remember, how much money was spent on taking care of those ducks?
I don't remember.
Or would it be in the story?
Some follow-up stories. There were in the follow-up stories a year or 2 later, because it ignited a couple of things, and 2 outdoor writers up there fired up at each other and arguing.
Oh, really? Oh boy.
Yeah. But it was just really cool to see that thing.
Well, yeah. And what year that was? We say is 2011 or 2012?
2012. Yeah.
Well, I was just looking briefly when Dan had that article pulled up. It looked like I don't know what the years were there, but there were only 591 king eiders banded, and at that time, only 10 had been at least turned in. Only 10 had been shot that they knew of that had been reported. Is that right?
Yeah. It was like he was like number 10 or 13 or something like that, real low, like never happened. So it's huge trophy, big trophy.
Yeah, it looks like here from 1962 to 2011, that's a long time, by the way, 50 years, only 591 king eiders have been banded. Of those, only 9 had been collected, and this hunter made 10, according to this. So that is a rare band.
Yeah. I think they're up to like 17 or 19 or something like that. I remember a couple years ago reading a story about one.
So pull that back
but
up.
Still rare.
With how old that bird is.
Well, so that's what I was just going to look at. It was banded in 96 as an adult. So I don't know how old king eiders get. I haven't really looked at any banding information on them. But so that was 2011-ish, so 11, so 15, at least 15 years old when it was killed. So that's an old band on a rare bird, and a rarer band on a rare bird. That's amazing.
Yeah, great story. And I mean, those those ducks are phenomenal. They're just freaks. I mean, you're sitting there past shooting from the shore, and they're just zipping by, just going out into the ocean. Like, where are you going? What are you doing? Like, there's nothing out there except Russia. Like, what are you doing? You know, well, and they just go out there and feed.
Yeah, they go out there and feed. Yeah, they find like mussel beds or clam beds or something, maybe. Or...
Yeah, but they can dive. They can dive. I wrote it for a story for Shooting Sportsman magazine about how far they can dive. Just, I mean, way down there, way down there, and they feed on those, mussels and whatever out there in the middle of nowhere. And it's just the most inhospitable place on the planet.
Right. I was just going to ask, how was the weather when you were there?
It was colder than hell. it was 40 below and like 40-mile-an-hour winds. And when we took off, I think it was the last week that the season was open. We took off, and it was in January. We took off, and we could see the ice shelf as it was coming in. You know, the Bering Sea was freezing around it. We had to break ice. We had to break the ice in the harbor of St. Paul there, and we're in a little Zodiac breaking ice to get out of the harbor.
Oh boy! You know, I would love to do that, and we just did layout boats up at Lake of the Woods. Not comparing the Northwest Angle to St. Paul Island by any means, but it was about 15 degrees, I don't know, 10, 15 mile an hour winds or so, and the fog. You could barely see these ducks until they hit the spread. So that was and we were in layout boats. That was a pretty wild hunt, but the extreme nature of the conditions at St. Paul Island, I mean, I think that's worth the adventure in itself, but man, that would be pretty crazy. When we were at Kodiak last year, we ended up leaving a few days earlier than we were planning because they had, I think, 4 or 5 straight days of like 80-mile-an-hour winds around the island. So the ferry on the Alaska Marine Highway canceled its trip to where we were at. So we had to take a flight to the Kodiak City, and we had to wait an extra day, I think, for that. And then we had to spend a day or two in Kodiak before we could take the ferry to Homer, and then we had to get a ride to Kenai. Then take a flight from Kenai to Anchorage to get out. So we didn't even book our return flights until we were ready to leave Kodiak because we didn't know when we were going to get out. And I mean, we had to basically make our plans, and that was right before Christmas last year. And I think we left on the 16th. And if we hadn't gone out on the 16th, we wouldn't have been able to get out till after Christmas. Like everything was either, delayed because of weather or booked because they had canceled so many flights. So
one way to snowstorm here too.
And a
lot of the highways in Minnesota were closed and flights weren't getting into the Twin Cities. So we maybe would have made it to Seattle.
I thought Seattle,
sleepless in Seattle.
I think Seattle had a storm too.
Then they might have. I don't know. We left, so I didn't know.
But that's part of the adventure, right? I mean, that's what makes it so memorable. Yeah. And then that's probably why you weren't hunting out of boats, I suppose, because the conditions were so brutal. Hunting from shore. Did you get your ducks?
We did a couple. We did a couple boat hunts. It was certain days that you had to wait and get out there and just tight little windows, and then you'd be out there and shooting or waiting for them to come in, and the guy would just be like, "Okay, time to go in." You're like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "Yeah, it's starting to break just a little." And I'm talking, it doesn't look that big, Oh, white caps are starting to come up. We got to start heading in now because it'll just turn on like that.
Oh boy!
And so you would head in, but yeah, ended up getting my birds. Got the king eider, got some harlequins, got some longtails or old squaws, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And then I got those in my coffee table in my man cave. I got the king eider on one side and the harlequins on the other side, and got the longtail set up together flying on the wall, and then ended up getting the fox.
Yeah, that's awesome. I got a red fox back here getting chased by a timber wolf. But then we got our sea ducks in the freezer still. We got to get them. Yeah, I'm going the wrong way here. Yeah, there he is. And the fox is supposed to have a sharp tail in its mouth, but the sharp tail fell out, so it's sitting right there for now. But I got to get that fixed. But we got our Harleys, which I didn't realize how easy they were going to be. We got our longtails on the last day. We just shot one of those, and that was a little bit tougher for the way we were hunting, but we got them. Didn't see any eiders, shot some scoters. But if you got 4 king eiders then?
Yeah. Well, I ended up with 1, 2. I think I ended up with just 2, and then I got the 4 of the others.
So I always, we wanted to, when we filmed up there, we wanted obviously to have some for the wall, but we also wanted to eat some. So we ate some harlequins, we ate a longtail, we ate scoters, ate a bunch of golden eyes. Golden eyes, they were all really good, actually. And the locals, we hunted with some locals, so we didn't go through a guide service up there. A friend of ours has a house on Kodiak Island, and then he has some friends that are locals up there, some natives that took us out. Great guys. And scoters and eiders, I think, scoters for sure, were their favorites because they were bigger and fattier. And it wasn't until we shot some surf scoters and some of the black scoters, and I didn't realize how cool those ducks actually were and how much bigger they were. And we did eat some, and they were delicious. And we kind of got, I don't want to say we really got ripped for eating some of those ducks, but we definitely had a couple of comments from people like, "What? Why would you go and eat those? Those are trophy ducks and they need to be managed." We interviewed a biologist. We learned about the history and the research on sea ducks and what they're doing and how they do need to be protected to some extent. But we didn't want them to be just considered just trophies. We wanted to try eating them a little bit.
Yeah.
So you got one of your kings mounted, or did you get them both mounted?
I just got the one mounted. He's sitting on a little ice floe at the end of the table, and he's down in there, got his leg hanging down. So
that's my question.
A little matching group of harlequins.
I'm curious if you had a chance to eat one at all, or if everybody just kept them for the wall. You did eat them?
No, we ate some. Yeah, we cooked some up, and they did them like little buffalo wings almost. And
oh, really? How were they?
Yeah, and so we got the kings. We also got a Pacific eider.
Oh, cool.
We had some scoters in there and stuff too. So, yeah, those were kind of added bonuses along with the fox.
That's awesome. I love it. I want to go back so bad. I would leave tomorrow if I could go up there again. It's such cool. That was a bucket list. Number one bucket list for me was duck hunting in the mountains with the mountains in Alaska as a backdrop. I didn't realize how big of a deal Kodiak Island was for waterfowling. I was going to Alaska to hunt ducks with mountains around me, and then when I told everybody we're going to Kodiak, they're like, "Oh." It's like, I feel like it's Kodiak Island and St. Paul Island are kind of the two big best destinations up there. Obviously, there's some other places where waterfowling is great, Cold Bay and some of the other places around there. But, man, Kodiak is a special place up there. So, all right, Brian, I kept you longer than I told you I would, so I appreciate the time. I'll let you get back there. But Sportsmen's Alliance Foundation, keep up the good work. It's an important thing. Sportsmensalliance.org, correct? Sportsmensalliance.org?
Yes, sir.
Is the website. Brian Lynn, Vice President, Marketing and Communications. Thanks for the time today on the show.
Thank you very much.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.